Hey folks, welcome back to Game Geeks. I'm your host, Kurt Wiegel. Today's episode, we are reviewing Designers and Dragons. I received this book as an Ennies judge, and I am reviewing it as such. This is not a traditional game book that is contained in here in this pretty weighty tome. You will not find rules on a system, rules on a world, anything like that. This is practically a dissertation on the history of role-playing. This is absolutely phenomenal to read from both the academic and sort of the armchair historian of this hobby, just to see how it all developed. This is written by Shannon APPELCLINE, and this has to be the result of many, many years of research. It is broken down into essentially generations or phases, sort of like chronologically, who was first, where did it go, etc. And it starts out with, obviously, TSR from 1973 to 1997. That was where it all began. And then it gets into phase 2, which is sort of the first wave that came after that, all the way up to part 7, which is called the Indie Revolution. In this is a very well-researched history of the hobby. It gives you some background information that you may or may not be aware of. It really links it in very nicely so that this all interconnects. You can see how some authors hopped from company to company or sort of shared their ideas or their information. There's a lot of good background on some of the more controversial events in role-playing, such as the Wizards of the Coast buyout of TSR and 4th edition. And one of the neater things about this and the way that this is all assembled is at the very end of each chapter, it's sort of like a choose-your-own-adventure book. So that at the end of it, what do you want to read next? If you want to read about TSR's UK connections, read Games Workshop. Or if you want to know about the two giants who created new hobbyist industries at the times eclipsed role-playing, read Games Workshops and Wizards of the Coast. So it really, you can connect in this any way you want. I had an absolute ball when I was reading this. It was really something that I have been looking for quite a while, which was a well-described history, well-laid-out background for this hobby that we all know and love so much. Now, by definition, any encyclopedia like this, or anything that deals with the chronological, is going to be slightly dated by the time it's published. This sort of stops at what they call present, which this was published in 2011. So anything that happens this year, 2012 and on, obviously won't be included in this. But really, you're looking at 1973 to 2011. There's a lot of ground you can cover in there. One of the things I really got a kick out of as I was reading this was how many times some of the same ideas cycled back around and some of the same mistakes cycled back around. One thing that the author is very blunt about is the fact that the D20 boom right after 3rd edition came out and then sort of collapsed, what it did to the hobby and what it did to some of the companies that were heavily involved in making D20 products. Obviously, one of the newer things that is not going to be included in this book is 5th edition, because that was just announced very recently, and like I said, this cuts off at 2011. But if you want a well-detailed history of this hobby, if you want what can only be described as an academic treatise on where we came from and how we got to where we are today, I cannot recommend this book highly enough. For Game Geeks, I'm your host, Kurt Wiegel. Good day and good gaming.